That gentle mist floating over the vegetables looks like a tiny indoor rainstorm. It feels fresh. It sounds fresh. It makes the lettuce shine, the kale stand tall, and the parsley look like it was picked 5 minutes ago. But here is the weird part. That mist is not just there to keep vegetables alive. It is also there to change how you feel, how long produce can be sold, how the store controls shrink, and even how much some vegetables weigh when they reach the checkout scale. Inside a modern grocery store, the produce section is not just a pile of fruits and vegetables. It is a carefully engineered stage. And the water spray is one of its oldest, simplest, and most powerful tricks. At first, the reason seems obvious. Vegetables lose water after harvest, leaves wilt, stems soften, herbs collapse, so supermarkets spray them to keep them crisp. That is true. But it is only the beginning, because once a vegetable is harvested, it is no longer attached to the plant that fed it, no roots, no soil, no fresh supply of water, but it is still alive in a biological sense. It is still breathing. It is still losing moisture. It is still slowly breaking down. Leafy vegetables are especially vulnerable. Lettuce, spinach, kale, cilantro, parsley, green onions, broccoli, celery, and similar produce have a lot of exposed surface area. That means water escapes quickly. Even a small amount of moisture loss can make them look tired, and in grocery stores, tired-looking produce is a problem, not because it is always unsafe, but because shoppers judge with their eyes first. A crisp, shiny head of lettuce says fresh. A dry, dull one says old, even if both arrived on the same truck. That sounds simple until you see what happens next. Stores do not spray every vegetable the same way. You usually see mist on leafy greens, herbs, broccoli, celery, asparagus, and root vegetables with greens still attached. You usually do not see it blasting apples, onions, garlic, potatoes, mushrooms, or berries. That is because water can help some produce and damage others. Leafy greens love humidity. Mushrooms can become slimy. Onions and garlic need dryness. Berries can mold faster when wet. Potatoes can sprout or rot if stored poorly, so the misting system has to be selective. It is not just decoration, it is part of a larger produce strategy. Behind those shelves there is plumbing, timers, nozzles, filters, drains, and temperature control. Many systems use fine mist nozzles that spray tiny droplets for a few seconds at regular intervals. The goal is not to soak the vegetables. It is to raise humidity around them and replace surface moisture before wilting becomes visible. Most people never think about this part. A produce display is fighting the air inside the store. Supermarkets are usually cool, dry, and full of moving air. Refrigeration removes moisture. Air conditioning removes moisture. Open display cases constantly exchange air with the room. That is great for keeping the store comfortable, but it is terrible for leaves. The mist acts like a small local weather system. It creates a humid pocket around the vegetables. That slows down water loss and helps the produce keep its structure. Because crispness is really about water pressure. Inside many plant cells, water pushes outward against the cell walls. That pressure keeps lettuce crunchy and celery firm. When water leaves, the pressure drops. The cells sag. The vegetable wilts. So when a grocery store sprays mist, it is trying to protect that internal pressure for a little longer. And in grocery retail, a little longer matters a lot. Produce is one of the most difficult parts of the store to manage. It is fragile, seasonal, perishable, and unpredictable. A box of cereal can sit on a shelf for months. A bunch of cilantro can look perfect in the morning and sad by dinner. Every wilted bunch is money lost. So misting helps reduce waste by keeping high-moisture vegetables sellable for more hours or days. But here is where the whole system changes. The mist also sells the idea of freshness. Before you even touch the vegetables, the store has already created a scene. Bright lights, green colors, wooden crates, neat piles, a faint sound of water, tiny droplets on the leaves. It feels like a farm stand, even though the produce may have traveled hundreds or thousands of miles through a cold chain of farms, trucks, warehouses, distribution centers, and back rooms. The mist bridges that gap. It makes industrial logistics feel natural. It gives the produce section a living, breathing quality, and shoppers respond to that. A wet leaf looks brighter, a shiny pepper looks more appealing. A bunch of kale with droplets on it looks fresher than a dry one, even if the real difference is mostly visual. That is not an accident. Supermarkets know the produce section sets the emotional tone for the whole store. When you walk in and see fresh greens, bright fruit, and mist drifting through the air, your brain gets a signal. This place is clean. This place is abundant. This food is fresh. And once that feeling is established, you may trust the rest of the store more. That would already be complicated enough, but it gets worse. Water can also affect weight. Some vegetables are sold by the pound. If they are wet when you put them in a bag, You may be paying for a small amount of water clinging to the surface. This does not mean every store is trying to trick you. Much of the water drains off, evaporates, or stays on the display, and the main goal is usually freshness and shelf life. But the effect is real enough that some shoppers shake off leafy greens before bagging them. It is one of those tiny supermarket details that almost nobody notices until they do. Still, stores have to be careful. Too much water can backfire. If vegetables stay wet for too long, they can become slippery, damaged, or more likely to spoil. Moisture can encourage mold and bacterial growth when temperature and handling are poor. It can also create messes on the floor, which becomes a safety issue. That is why the mist comes in short bursts. It runs on a schedule because constant spraying would be wasteful and risky. The goal is balance, enough moisture to keep leaves crisp and appealing. Not so much that the display turns into a swamp. This is also why produce workers constantly rotate, trim, inspect, and remove items. The mist is not magic. It cannot reverse decay. It cannot make old produce new again. It cannot fix bruising, poor temperature control, bad handling, or a broken supply chain. It can only slow down one part of the process, moisture loss. This next step is where things get interesting. Before vegetables ever reach the misting shelf, they have already been through a long preservation system. Many are harvested early in the morning, cooled quickly, packed into crates, moved into refrigerated trucks, stored in distribution centers, and delivered to stores under controlled conditions. Temperature is everything. A few degrees too warm, and respiration speeds up. A vegetable burns through its stored energy faster. Texture changes, flavor fades, spoilage accelerates. Too cold, and some produce can suffer chilling damage. So the grocery store mist is really the final tiny piece of a much larger chain. The farm removes the vegetable from the ground. The cold chain slows it down. The store display keeps it attractive long enough for a shopper to choose it. And the mist helps the final scene look alive. Most people think the produce section is simple because the food looks simple. A carrot, a cabbage, a bunch of green onions. But behind that simplicity is a constant fight against time. Every hour after harvest, the product is changing. Water is leaving, sugars are shifting, cells are weakening. Microbes are waiting for the right conditions. A supermarket is not just selling vegetables. It is managing biology at retail speed. And it has to do this while making everything look effortless. That is why the mist feels so normal. It hides the complexity. You do not see the supply chain. You see droplets. You do not think about humidity control. You think that lettuce looks good. You do not think about shrink, margin, refrigeration, or cellular pressure. You just reach for the bunch that looks freshest, and that is exactly the point. The mist works because it helps both sides of the transaction. The store keeps delicate produce attractive for longer. The shopper gets greens that are less wilted and more appealing. But it also reminds us of something important about modern food. Freshness in a supermarket is not just a natural quality. It is designed, protected, performed, and maintained. From the farm field to the truck to the refrigerated case, every step is trying to slow down the moment when living produce becomes waste. So the next time that little rainstorm starts over the vegetables, it might look peaceful. But it is doing several jobs at once. It is preserving texture. It is protecting appearance. It is shaping your perception. It is fighting dry air. It is buying time. And in a store where every leaf has a countdown clock, a few seconds of mist can make the whole display feel alive. That is the hidden truth of the produce aisle. The vegetables are not just sitting there. They are being managed. And that gentle spray is one of the quietest machines in the supermarket, working in plain sight. If you enjoyed this look behind everyday systems, subscribe for more stories from Curious Eagle.